folks, and welcome back to the next part of the Withered Arm. So we are here for chapter 5 and 6, and I actually did go and get my glasses today because, as you can see, we're in a different place with kind of a different lighting situation. I'm not fully used to my glasses yet. We'll see how this goes. Sometimes they do make me feel like a little bit dizzy. So we'll see how things go. I don't know. Yeah, so we last left off in our story with the two women, both the one with the withered arm and the one that may or may not have intentionally or subconsciously cursed her to have the withered arm, looking to go to the cunning man or conjurer to try and sort of shed some light on the situation, sort of whatever that might reveal. So before we get into it, I just want to apologize in advance, as always, for any misspeakings, any mispronunciations I might make, and if I have to start a section again. But the whole point of my channel is to sort of demonstrate sort of a love of reading and the joy in a good story, no matter how imperfect a reader you may happen to be. You don't have to get every reference. You don't have to analyze every word or understand absolutely everything. It's just a fun time, and the point of my channel is that I want to share that with everybody. So here we go with chapter 5, which is, oddly enough, entitled Conjurer Trendle. By the next afternoon, Rhoda would have done anything to escape this inquiry, but she had promised to go. Moreover, there was a horrid fascination at times in becoming instrumental in throwing such possible light on her own character as would reveal her to be something greater in the occult world than she herself had ever suspected. She started just before the time of day mentioned between them, and half an hour's brisk walking brought her to the southeastern extension of the Egnan tract of country, where the fir plantation was. So, fir as in fir tree. She's talking about a tract of fir trees. A slight figure, cloaked and veiled, was already there. Rhoda recognized, almost with a shudder, that Mrs. Lodge bore her left arm in a sling. They hardly spoke to each other, and immediately set out on their climb into the interior of this solemn country, which stood high above the rich alluvial soil they had left half an hour before. It was a long walk. Thick clouds made the atmosphere dark, though it was as yet only early afternoon, and the wind howled dismally over the slopes of the heath. Not improbably the same heath which had witnessed the agony of the Wessex king Ina or Ina, I'm not sure, presented to after ages as Lear. Oh, speaking of references, we got some Shakespeare. Gertrude Lodge talked most, Rhoda replying with monosyllabic preoccupation. Yeah, I bet. She had a strange dislike to walking on the side of her companion where hung the afflicted arm, moving round to the other when inadvertently near it. Much heather had been brushed by their feet when they descended upon a cart track, besides which stood the house of the man that they sought. He did not profess his remedial practices openly, or care anything about their continuance, his direct interests being those of a dealer in, I'm going to mispronounce this, furs, Furze, turf, sharp sand, and other local products. It almost sounds like a garden center. Indeed, he affected not to believe largely in his own powers, and when warts that had been shown him for cure miraculously disappeared, which it might be owned they infallibly did, he would say lightly, I only drink a glass of grog upon 'em. Perhaps it's all chance, and immediately turn the subject. Smart man, if you ask me. He was at home when they arrived, having in fact seen them descending into his valley. He was a gray-bearded man with reddish face, and he looked singularly at Rhoda the first moment he beheld her. Mrs. Lodge told him of her errand, and then, with words of self-disparagement, he examined her arm. "Medicine can't cure it," he said promptly. "'Tis the work of an enemy." Rhoda shrank into herself and drew back. "An enemy? What enemy?" asked Mrs. Lodge. He shook his head. "That's best known to yourself," he said. "If you like, I can show the person to you, though I shall not myself know who it is. I can do no more, and don't wish to do that." So the case is even giving the conjurer a bit of the heebie-jeebies. She pressed him, on which he told Rhoda to wait outside where she stood, and took Mrs. Lodge into the room. It opened immediately from the door, and, as the latter remained ajar, Rhoda Brooke could see the proceedings without taking part in them. He brought a tumbler from the dresser, nearly filled it with water, and fetched an egg. Oh, I know what he's going to do. Prepared in some private way, after which he broke it on the edge of the glass so that the white went in and the yolk remained. As it was getting gloomy, he took the glass and its contents to the window and told Gertrude to watch the mixture closely. They leant over the table together, and the milkwoman could see the opaline hue of the egg fluid changing form as it sank into the water, but she was not near enough to define the shape that it assumed. "Do you catch the likeness of any face or figure as you look?" demanded the conjurer of the young woman. She murmured a reply in tones so low as to be inaudible to Rhoda, and continued to gaze intently into the glass. Rhoda turned and walked a few steps away. When Mrs. Lodge came out and her face was met by the light, it appeared exceedingly pale as Rhoda's, against the sad, dun shades of the upland's garniture. Oh, let me try that phrase again. I feel like I said that weird. Against the sad, dun shades of the upland's garniture. Trendle shut the door behind her, and they at once started homeward together, but Rhoda perceived that her companion had quite changed. "Did he charge much?" she asked tentatively. "Oh, no, nothing. He would not take a farthing," said Gertrude. "And what did you see?" inquired Rhoda. Nothing I care to speak of." The constraint in her manner was remarkable. Her face was so rigid as to wear an oldened aspect, faintly oh my goodness, today, what is wrong with me? The constraint in her manner was remarkable. Her face was so rigid as to wear an oldened aspect, faintly suggestive of the face in Rhoda's bedchamber. "Was it you who first proposed coming here?" Mrs. Lodge asked suddenly after a long pause. "How very odd if you did." Yeah, I guess it would be odd, wouldn't it? "No, but I am not very sorry we have come, all things considered," she replied. For the first time, a sense of triumph possessed her, and she did not altogether deplore that the young thing at her side should learn that their lives had been antagonized by other influences than their own. The subject was no more alluded to during the long and dreary walk home, but in some way or other a story was whispered about the many-dairied lowland that winter that Mrs. Lodge's gradual loss of the use of her left arm was owing to her being overlooked by Rhoda Brooke. The latter kept her own counsel about the incubus, but her face grew sadder and thinner, and in the spring she and her boy disappeared from the neighborhood of Homestoke. So they've seen the conjurer, and presumably Gertrude saw the face of Rhoda in the egg. Who knows? I kind of like that it's not really said for sure. And I guess, yeah, I can see how stories would come about without anybody saying anything. Small communities are, it's a trope, isn't it? That there's no privacy in a small community. Everybody sees everything, knows everything, so it doesn't surprise me. that there's hints of something of this meeting with the cunning man kind of getting out to the general populace. So now we have chapter 6, a second attempt. Half a dozen years passed away, and Mr. and Mrs. Lodge's married experience sank into prosiness and worse. The farmer was usually gloomy and silent. The woman whom he had wooed for her grace and beauty was contorted and disfigured in the left limb. Moreover, she had brought him no child, which rendered it likely that he would be the last of a family who had occupied that valley for some 200 years. I mean, you'd think you'd be sad about what your wife is going through in terms of her medical problems, but yeah, okay. He thought of Rhoda Brooke and her son and feared this might be a judgment from heaven upon him. Maybe. The once blithe-hearted and enlightened Gertrude was changing into an irritable, superstitious woman whose whole time was given to experimenting upon her ailment with every quack remedy she came across. I mean, I don't really blame her. She was honestly attached to her husband and was ever secretly hoping against hope to win back his heart again by regaining some, at least, of her personal beauty. Hence it arose that her closet was lined with bottles, packets, and ointments of every description, nay, bunches of mystic herbs, charms, and books of necromancy, which in her schoolgirl time she would have ridiculed as folly. Damned if you won't poison yourself with these apothecary messes and witch mixtures sometime or other, said her husband when his eye chanced to fall upon the multitudinous array, which, yeah, I'd be worried about her accidentally doing herself harm too. She did not reply, but turned her sad, soft glance upon him in such heart-swollen reproach that he looked sorry for his words and added, I only meant it for your good, you know, Gertrude. I mean, you could just, love your wife, regardless of what she looks like. That's an option, too. I'll clear out the whole lot and destroy them, she said huskily, and try such remedies no more. You want somebody to cheer you up, he observed. I once thought of adopting a boy, but he is too old now, and he has gone away. I don't know where. Seriously, bud? Seriously? She guessed to whom he alluded, yeah, don't we all? For Rhoda Brooke's story had, in the course of years, become known to her, though not a word had ever passed between her and her husband on the subject. Neither had she ever spoken to him of her visit to Conjurer Trendle, and of what was revealed to her, or she thought was revealed to her, by that solitary Heath man. She was now 25, but seemed older. Oh, horrors, she's coming up on her expiration date. 6 years of marriage and only a few months of love, she sometimes whispered to herself. And then she thought of the apparent cause and said, with tragic glance at her withered limb, if I could only be again as I was when he first saw me. No, girl, he's not worth it. She obediently destroyed her nostrums and charms, but there remained a hankering wish to try something else, some other sort of cure altogether. She had never revisited Trendle since she had been conducted to the house of the solitary by Rhoda against her will, but it now suddenly occurred to Gertrude that she would, in a last desperate effort at deliverance from this seeming curse, again seek out the man if he yet lived. Sorry, just getting comfortable. He was entitled to a certain credence, for the indistinct form he had raised in the glass had undoubtedly resembled the only woman in the world who, as she now knew, though had not then, could have a reason for bearing her ill will. The visit should be paid. This time she went alone, though she nearly got lost on the heath and roamed a considerable distance out of her way. Trendle's house was reached at last. However, he was not indoors, and instead of waiting at the cottage, she went to where his bent figure was pointed out to her at work a long way off. Trendle remembered her, and laying down the handful of furze roots which he was gathering and throwing into a heap, he offered to accompany her in the homeward direction, as the distance was considerable and the days were short. So they walked together, his head bowed nearly to the earth, and his form of a color with it. You can send away warts and other oh no, I don't know about this word. You can send away warts and other excrescence? Other excrescence, I know, she said. Why can't you send this away? And the arm was uncovered. You think too much of my powers, said Trendle. And I am old and weak now, too. No, it is too much for me to attempt in my own person. What have you tried? She named him some of the hundreds of medicaments and counterspells which she had adopted from time to time. He shook his head. Some were good enough, he said approvingly, but not many of them for such as this. This is the nature of a blight, not of the nature of a wound, and if you ever do throw it off, it will be all at once. If only I could. There is only one chance of doing it known to me. It has never failed in kindred afflictions, that I can declare, but it's hard to carry out, especially for a woman. Tell me, she said. You must touch with the limb the neck of a man who's been hanged. She stared a little at the image. My goodness. She started a little at the image he had raised. Yeah, I don't blame her. Before he's cold, just after he's cut down, continued the conjurer impassively. How can that do good? It will turn the blood and change the constitution, but as I say, to do it is hard. You must go to the jail when there's a hanging and wait for him when he's brought off the gallows. Lots have done it, though perhaps none such a pretty woman as you. I used to send dozens for skin complaints, but those were in former times. The last I sent was in 13, nearly 20 years ago. He had no more to tell her, and when he had put her into a straight track homeward, turned and left her, refusing all money as at first. So that is the end of chapter 6 of The Withered Arm. So yes, Gertrude has been told what to do to cure her affliction. She has to take her unfortunate arm and touch it to a freshly hanged man, which is quite an ask. I mean, as folk remedies go, it's probably one of the more gruesome ones that I've read about or heard of, but why not? At this point, you kind of feel for Gertrude, and I don't know about you, but I'm personally on the, why not? Give it a shot. At this point, just give it a shot, right? So anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and you can join me again here soon for the rest of the story, The Withered Arm. I'm quite enjoying it. I think it's really cool. I like the sort of the folk magic aspect of it, I guess. I think it's really cool. So until you can join me here again for the rest of the story, I hope you and your loved ones are safe and well, and we can get together here soon for some more of The Withered Arm. Goodbye, folks.